All right, man, peace. So in the aftermath of the great LeBron James being swept in the finals, the question has to be asked, what effect will this have on his legacy that he was swept in the 2018 finals by the Golden State Warriors? Of course, when you pair that with him getting swept in 2007 by the San Antonio Spurs, how is he going to be viewed when people look back at his career? Will it be a black mark in regards to how he's evaluated in comparison to many of the other all-time greats? And have we forgotten the fact that many of them have themselves been swept? So, of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
We all know the deal. Cavs on the brink of being swept here, and we know what's hanging over LeBron James' head. A sixth finals loss. Stephen A., what would a sweep mean for the King?
It'll be very bad. It'll be very bad. Okay? First of all, you can't be the king without a crown. You cannot. I'm gonna repeat. I did not mince words.
Stephen A. was about to curse there. He was about to say, I did not fucking stutter.
You cannot be the king without the crown. Now, we've been calling him the king for a lot of years, and he is phenomenal. We know all of this. Put up my graphic, please, because we need my graphic. Because you got to make sure I'm about to give a critique. And obviously, when we're giving a critique about LeBron, my God, how dare me do such a thing? So we have to monitor these things. We have to be very, very careful. So let's make sure we put up the graph. See that great father, great husband, great generous philanthropist, the LeBron James Family Foundation, the I Promise Initiative. Max, what did I miss, Max? I missed actor. We didn't have room, but actor, pitchman, what up?
What does he do?
He diets beautifully. You know, I mean, he should.
He doesn't have the greatest hairline.
Is there anything? Well, listen.
Molly, why you sending out shots like that? Talking about LeBron's hair.
Listen, I am.
Notice he didn't touch that.
About anybody's
He didn't touch that.
I'm in no position to talk about anybody's hairline.
Yeah, Steve, leave that alone. LeBron spends $1.5 million a year on his body. Stephen A. Smith spends $1.5 million on his hairline. It still has had no effect.
That much I know. But I will say this. I will say this in all seriousness. Despite his greatness, and the man is great, and he's phenomenal, an all-timer, I'm not even thinking about the 6 NBA Finals losses, because every one of them hasn't been his fault. I mean, what's he supposed to do against San Antonio, for crying out loud? You know, I understand. Okay?
Well, he's never going to be able to do anything against San Antonio because San Antonio actually runs a real system. Quiet as kept. They're 2-1 against LeBron, and they should be 3-0.
But getting swept is an entirely different matter. You know, for those of you who may not remember, covered the NBA for many, many years. I covered every day of Allen Iverson's career for the first 10 years. And I remember Allen Iverson showing up on the court with Eric Snow, George Lynch, Tyrone Hill, Dikembe Mutombo, Aaron McKee. These guys are rough riders. They could really, really defend, but certainly weren't superstars, weren't stars, certainly weren't offensive juggernauts. And they were going up against Shaq in his prime and Kobe on the come up. And everybody sat up there and said, damn, Stephen A., you ain't giving them no chance. I said, no chance whatsoever. Well, the Sixers going to get swept. And I said, no. AI will get you one. Now, if AI can get you one at 6 feet, 160 pounds, soaking wet, going up against Shaq and Kobe, why can't I look at LeBron James, the king? 6'9", 270, locomotive, best player in the world, inside or out, averaging 37, 10, and 9 in this series, by the way. Why can I not look at him and say, excuse me, get me one, especially when it's with a team you picked?
Well, here's the problem with that, Stephen A. Smith. And I agree with you. There have been other players that were able to at least get one game in the NBA Finals or some other NBA playoff series, even though the chips were stacked against them in regards to the talent disparity. But Allen Iverson was actually playing in a real system, even though he was the focal point of the offense. That Philadelphia 76ers team was also, if not the best defensive team in the NBA that season. They were certainly in the top 2 or 3. So when you play non-pareil defense or stellar defense, that is going to automatically shrink the margins of the outcome, because that's what great defense does. Due to the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers were playing the LeBron James system on offense and defense, they had no chance to defeat the Golden State Warriors. If they were playing an actual system, if they actually were being coached and had some type of offensive and defensive schematic where every member of the team felt like they were being implemented in what the team was doing, then they would have given themselves a greater chance, because they certainly had the overall talent on the roster from top to bottom to win at least one game. If the San Antonio Spurs could beat the Golden State Warriors in one game without Kawhi Leonard, even though the Golden State Warriors did not have Steph Curry, they were still able to beat Golden State one game without Kawhi Leonard. And every other game was very competitive. There's no reason why the Cleveland Cavaliers should not have at least won one game with who is supposedly the greatest player of all time.
Tristan Thompson's got that contract because of LeBron James. J.R. Smith has that contract because of LeBron James. Kyle Korver's on this squad because of LeBron James.
That's my point, Stephen A. Smith. Thank you, sir. I don't understand how people can complain about the roster when LeBron James picked the roster.
Okay? Listen, Kyrie Irving is gone because of LeBron James. Okay? Now, Dan Gilbert, let him go.
Oh, you guys don't like that, huh?
Time out. We're not talking emotion, and I'm seeing folks wave me off. I respect that if I was giving an opinion. I'm giving you fact.
Thank you, sir. That's my point on this channel. Sometimes I have people come in the comments and say, you have to respect other people's opinion. Bro, my channel is not about shit talking. Every once in a while, a little bit of shit talking is a component of dialogue, especially when it comes to something that you may adhere to or a particular stance that you might have. But if the majority of your conversation is not based in empirical data, something of substance or fact, no, what you're saying is not valid. It doesn't work like that. Because when you're not speaking according to fact, substance, or empirical data, the conversation never moves forward to a solution, to a resolution. And that's a major problem in the so-called black community. Too many niggas think that their opinion is supposed to be as valid as facts. And no, it doesn't work like that.
I'm not speculating. Dan Gilbert did trade him, but Kyrie Irving won trade. And Max, even you have to co-sign this. Where did Kyrie Irving sit for 2 hours? And what did he say? And how did he say it? The man did not want to be there any longer. All I'm saying is, at the end of the day, this is LeBron James' team. I don't think it's too much to ask to get one game.
Well, the question is it fair to ask LeBron to at least get you one? Let me tell you something. He already got you one. He got you one in so many ways. Hold on. He got you one championship against a 73-win team that the whole world was ready to coronate as the greatest team of all time.
You know, it's so funny. So many of LeBron James's stupor fans, or the numerous plants that he has scattered across the liberal sports media landscape, they love to bring up how he was able to defeat a 73-9 team when the argument suits them. And then when it's time for them to speak the truth, they'll say, well, we all know that LeBron shouldn't have won the finals that year because of such and such, Draymond Green and Steph being hurt and Bogut getting hurt and Iguodala being hampered and so on and so forth. They know the real reason why he won that championship. But when they're trying to promote a fallacious argument, then they'll just throw LeBron James's championship in 2016 into the hat as if it bolsters their stance in some way.
He beat them on the road in a game 7. That's one. He got you.
Well, I wouldn't say that LeBron James beat the Golden State Warriors on the road in Game 7. I would say that the Cleveland Cavaliers beat Golden State on the road in Game 7 because Kyrie Irving was as essential as LeBron James was.
One in this series in Game 1 that was taken away by the refs and J.R. Smith.
Well, look, I'm already on record as stating that I believe that the refs robbed Cleveland in Game 1. But if we're going to be literal, they had an entire overtime for LeBron James to rebound. And I would be more resolute in agreeing with Max Kellerman in totality in regards to Game 1 had LeBron James put his best foot forward in overtime, but he did not. He imploded, and he gave his team no chance to win in overtime because he could not get over what he believes J.R. Smith and Tyronn Lue did in the court with the referees. LeBron has started to embrace even more, as he's gotten older, the victimization mentality. Everybody's out to get me. Nobody likes me. Everyone wants to see me fall. Remember before this season, he was singing in the gym while he was working out, losing his mind, talking about, they want to see me fall. I did a series on that called Is LeBron James Going Insane? Or something like that. Is LeBron James losing his mind? because I saw before the season where he was going as a person, that his overall psychological imprint was becoming fractured. He was not as stable as he needed to be coming into the season. And it showed in the finals. Oftentimes, how you start something is how you'll end it.
He got you 2 against the Warriors when he didn't have Kyrie or Kevin Love. The first time they played took him to a game 6. 2. Let's talk about, is it bad for LeBron if he gets swept? Well, of course. You don't want to get swept. That's going to be held against you. On the other hand, people will point out, I'm sure I'll point out on this show and at a future date, it indicates more than anything that he didn't have a squad. They didn't belong there in the first place. He somehow, through a miracle of his own greatness, got this sorry squad here. The Sixers, as you mentioned, Stephen A., at least could...
You know, it's so funny. Max Kellerman pretty much picked the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James to lose basically every series in the Eastern Conference. And I'm realizing now the reason why he did that was so that if and when his boo, LeBron James, were to lead his team to victory in those playoff rounds, he could use that to try to exalt LeBron even more.
Could rely on their defense. This team doesn't play together. It doesn't play as a team. It's not talented. They don't play defense. And yet here they are in the finals, and it could be 2-1 Cleveland because of LeBron. Now,
Could be, but not.
Now, getting swept. This wouldn't be a great look for LeBron, especially since it'd be the second time he got swept. He got swept against the Spurs. Okay, but we recognize then. We just give him credit. Oh my God, you got there against the Spurs. We will look back and give him credit for this too. Who else has gotten swept in the NBA Finals? Let's see.
Shaq got swept a boatload of times, like 6 times.
Shaq got swept in the finals, though. No, in the finals he got swept against Hakeem. Shaq...
Let me say this about Shaq. And the reason why it's very difficult to talk about how other great players got swept in relation to how LeBron got swept is because we don't speak about those other players as being the greatest of all time. Nobody says that Shaq is the greatest of all time. But to be honest, if we're going to evaluate the Orlando Magic in 1995, I believe the year was when they got swept by the Rockets, they should have won Game 1 as well had it not been for Nick Anderson. So it's difficult for Max Kellerman to bring up Shaquille O'Neal in 1995 when he just stated that he believes that LeBron James already got the Cavaliers a game against the Golden State Warriors that he feels like LeBron should have won had it not been for a missed free throw. Because all Nick Anderson had to do was make 1 out of 4 free throws and the Orlando Magic win Game 1. And from there, we never know what's going to happen.
Shaq got swept. The most dominant big man of my lifetime. Because by the time I was watching the NBA, Kareem was great, but he was in a little bit decline.
And let me say this also, for naysayers who might say, well, if you believe that if Nick Anderson hit the free throw, that series could have been different, then how do we know that had George Hill hit the free throw, that Cleveland may not have beaten Golden State? Well, the talent disparity coming into the 95 finals was actually on the side of Orlando. Perceivably, the talent edge went to Orlando, but they were very precocious. And what the Rockets did after Nick Anderson had his collapse, they just used that event to initiate a snowball effect, and Orlando could not recover. Plus, they did not have an elite coach. Shaq didn't really know how to win in the playoffs until Phil Jackson came along.
Shaquille O'Neal, would anyone doubt he's in the conversation among the greatest ever? Got swept. Who's the greatest?
At least in the big spot, in the finals.
Who's the greatest point guard of all time?
Magic Johnson.
Magic Johnson, right? Anyone here know that Magic got swept? Swept. Now, I'm not even going to guys like KD, Westbrook, and Harden, who all played together on the same team with Ibaka and got swept.
Well, I don't believe that they got swept. If Max is referring to the finals against LeBron, they lost that series in 5. And one could make the case that they got robbed in Game 2, I believe it was.
You can get swept and still be among the greatest players of all time. You don't want it. But the fact that now this will be twice, that clearly a team with no business in the finals got there, and in this case, what should have already won a game and was in another, is amazing.